Your ass! You will not laugh. You will not cry. You will learn by the numbers. I will teach you. Now get up!
Good evening, friends. It's Friday, which means it's time once again for another entertaining episode of Hobbservations on Roads to Liberty, part of the Think Liberty Network. That is think-liberty.com for all of your freedom posting needs. Think-liberty.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're on pretty much all of the apps. Also, please go to Roads, the number 2, liberty.com for your freedom swag. Go get a shirt, go get a mug, go get something else. Just give us your money, please. Tonight, it's the very first Hobbservations episode of 2021, so I thought we'd kick things off a little light, more light than normally. Normally we talk about prepping and guns and all sorts of real cynical shit. So today I thought I'd try to keep things a little bit light with a man whose work I've been enjoying quite a bit for the past few months. Ed Black of I Survived the Kali Yuga. Ed, how are you this evening, sir?
Oh, I'm doing great. Well, shit, I thought we were going to talk about some heavy stuff right now, and now I got
Oh, we
to
will.
keep it light. Okay.
We will. It always kind of goes off the rails. I don't ever have any kind of plan when I go into these things. I just find interesting people and try to talk to them for an hour and
Sounds
fill out
good.
an hour.
Sounds
So
good.
so like I said, I've been enjoying your works, your Kali Yuga comics for a while now. They always used to like pop up and I'd laugh at them, and then I was like, I'm going to give this guy a follow. See them all the time, and they always kind of make me smile a little bit. So tell us a little
All
bit
right.
about that and what it is you do and what these things.
Yeah. So I started making comics around 2018. I ran a meme page on Facebook back in the day called Dank Detective Memes. Shockingly, it's still up. They haven't taken it down yet. They've taken down like every gun page in the world except for mine, oddly enough. But I ran that for a while, and then I basically decided to make this caricature kind of myself, but of also every kind of two-way minded person in the world, and I called it that 30-year-old greatest generation dude. And from there, I made a few short strips, and they're crudely drawn. I drew them with MS Paint and a mouse back in the day, and enough people thought they were funny that they got shared a lot, and it kind of snowballed from there. And I started making more comics and more comics, and eventually I was like, well, fuck, I used to be a writer, so I'm going to try to leverage this into an actual story. So I started writing serials off of that, and created characters and a whole thing. And 3 years later, here I am, and I'm a semi-famous internet celebrity, I guess.
Yeah, they're always good, and the thing that I appreciate about them most, I think, is that it's the art style, which is very kind of simplistic film noir. I think I'd call it. It's very yeah, and then the subject matter of it. There are always these 4-panel things, and the first 3 panels are usually like really deep or very serious, very heavy, very somber, cynical, whatever. And then it's like the punchline comes in the 4th, and sometimes there's not even any text in them. It's just like an expression on the guy's face, and it's that sort of being able to take a look at some very heavy and very adult topics, and then turn around and take that kind of gallows humor at a very shitty situation that I know I appreciate. And speaking as a former soldier myself, it's something that I think all of us that have had that experience kind of need to keep the old noodle squared away up top.
Yeah, I think anybody that's been to the right of baseline as far as violence and hard situations goes will appreciate the kind of gallows humor, as you put it. Anytime you have a serious subject matter, a pretty fundamental coping mechanism of people is to make light of it in some way. And I've been around myself. I've been all over the place, and it's just kind of one of those things. It's just like you acquire it over time, I guess. That kind of like cynical humor, I guess. And I started making comics off of that, and enough people thought it was relatable that they just kept kept tuning in and kept coming back to the page. And I think I'm at like a couple thousand strips now because of it. So
yeah, the old saying is that you got to laugh to keep from crying.
exactly.
Yeah, I think I'd rather laugh than cry anyways. But it seems like you're really you're really attracting the right kind of people too. I read some of the comments down there, and there's some stuff that's spicy and some stuff that some people say some things that Zuckerberg probably is going to shake the no stick at.
Pretty much.
Yeah, but I think that by and large you probably got a pretty solid fan base of some genuinely good dudes.
Yeah, I wouldn't be where I am today without the core audience that I accumulated over the last couple of years. And I would shout out to each of them individually, but I'm going to forget at least one of them, and I don't want to do that. So you all know who you are. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you. I mean, you guys, you let me do what I love to do every day. And, I've turned a hobby into something that's actually semi-lucrative. And, I can hopefully I keep entertaining you and keep more people coming to the page and, laughing at the, weird situation we find ourselves in nowadays. Cause everything's kind of, I mean, what the fuck, man,
Yeah, that's a good segue.
Oh, I think you dropped off there, buddy.
No, fuck. My brother asked me this question the other day. He said, on a scale of street corner prostitute to Caligula's orgies, how fucked are we in the next few years?
I think we're somewhere in the second triumvirate phase of fucked. So not terminal, but somewhere in the beginning stages of the decline of Rome. We're kind of right in there in that corridor, I think.
Yeah, my brother's a kind of a history nerd, and he's big on the Roman Empire and just like lockstep similarities that everything is happening now with what happened back then. The fact that he used Caligula's orgies as the upper tier of how bad things are going to get. It just seems like, there's layers to that. You kind of got to unpack it a little bit.
Yeah. I say to myself every day, I go out and I see like the just kind of degenerate, baseline of America right now. I live pretty close to Chicago and I work there pretty often. So, I go into the city and, the other day I saw a sign for people selling, insulin strips, test strips and shit like that. I'm thinking like, okay, you're robbing your mother that's diabetic to, pay for your freaking heroin habit, whatever. But that kind of right there just kind of set the tone of like, all right, so this is where we're at now. And in a couple of years, we're gonna kind of be at the point where like I can go to any building in America and just like take off my clothes and it's just gonna be a fucking orgy. And that's gonna be the norm. We're not there yet, so like that's kind of my baseline. Like we're not quite at the final stages of Rome yet, but we're like in the middle. I think that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, and when I was talking to a guy a while back, he was talking about how the original revolution, it was 5 years from the Boston Massacre that they didn't have the internet in the 1770s. So if we're like in the middle of the fall of the Roman Empire, what took 100, 200 years way back when is probably going to take 6 months now.
There's a bit of an acceleration. Just the speed of communication kind of like amplifies that. That's an interesting point you bring up. I was thinking about this the other day, and it's kind of like the dopamine psychosis that I enumerated a little bit in my comics and personal writings and stuff, that every time that you get that like little boost from sharing something or somebody likes your post or like does whatever dopamine boosts shit that they do on social media, every time that happens you get that little kick, right? So we've reached a point now where like you've got these people that are like very addicted to it and very tolerant of it. So they'll keep upping the ante with what they say over time. And eventually you get to this point of like people are just saying absolutely asinine, crazy shit because they've reached that stage of tolerance where they're not getting the same feedback that they used to. So it is very much like that kind of like, we've reached that stage of communication where like everything is just kind of amplified and everything is very exaggerated, I guess, because we're getting that feedback from it.
Yeah. So you just said that you lived outside of Chicago,
right? Yeah, near Rockford.
Yeah, and the thing I've kind of had like some semi-informal conversations with people about cities, and then I'll ask you because you live next to a big one that has a reputation for both massive amounts of corruption, as well as massive amounts of left-wing thought. So what is it? It's kind of it's kind of a chicken versus egg sort of thing in my mind. Do cities attract people with left-wing beliefs, or do cities make people have left-wing beliefs? And my personal theory on it is that it's the sort of interdependency of people living in close proximity to each other, the hyper specialization that you get from I'm a barista and that's all I know and that's all I do, and the guy who lives in the apartment next door to me is the guy that bakes the bread down at the local deli, and that's all he does and it's all he knows. And as long as everything in this well-oiled machine that we call a city is working at least somewhat well, then you can have that sort of hyper specialization, and it's not going to hinder you at all, because we have money to exchange what you lack in your own ability to make up versus what you need to survive. So that's my personal theory. I think that
Right.
cities kind of create this dependent mindset. But what's your theories on it?
I think you're right in that regard. I think also it's a matter of population as well, because once you have a large enough population to draw from, you're kind of like, diffusing that need out into a very much larger pool to draw from. But I think that initially people in the city are just kind of there because they're stuck. They don't really have anywhere else to go. They don't have means to travel outside the city into the suburbs to buy, a nicer house or whatever. I'm fortunate that I grew up in, the sticks. I grew up on the fucking nature preserve, so I'm completely devoid of the city. It was only, in the last probably 10 years that I really started really getting into the urban side of things and seeing it for what it was. But urbanites have this kind of weird, like, they start out stuck, and then because they're stuck, they kind of attract like-minded people that are, attracted to that, I don't know, squalor or that culture that they've created because they have no real option otherwise. And it just kind of, it perpetuates itself off of that, They get there, they see the urban squalor, and then they become part of that culture, and that culture becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, and it just snowballs from there. And eventually you get this weird urbanite miasma, I guess, that's just like full of these people that just, they can't divorce themselves from it anymore.
Yeah, and the weirdest thing that I think, especially seeing how fast people are jumping ship from places like Cook County area, New York, California, going to places like Texas and other places that are lower taxes, lower regulation, and whatnot. There seems to be a bit of cognitive dissonance between these urbanites. They know that their city is an absolute shithole, but by God, they will defend its honor to the death.
Well, absolutely. It's that tribal mindset. You don't want to like shit on the place that you're from, right? That's your people, right? You always hear guys from like West Philly or like the West Side of Chicago or whatever, and they're talking about like, yeah, West Side, and it's like, dude, you're from a shithole. You dodged 3 bullets on the way here. What are you talking about? But these guys are really. They don't know how to not bring their bullshit with them. So, places like Texas, places like Idaho, places like Wisconsin, even, and Indiana, they're getting steadily ruined by the outflux of people that, they leave these places because they're shitholes. And they're just untenable to live in because the tax rate is so crippling, and the amount of money that you have to just get by as a middle-class person is just not, it's just not there. And then, they go to these places and they're thinking like, well, I'm going to start new, but then they bring the same attitudes with them. So these attitudes that they've accumulated over time in these cities, they don't go away. They stay with these people. So you got areas like Texas and Idaho that are just steadily going blue, because they don't know any different. They're like, oh, well, of course, this is just the way that we always done it. That can't be the reason that everything's fucked, like that was how I was raised, and I think that we're seeing a really kind of depressing shift in a lot of these places that's going in this weird direction that you would think it wouldn't be that direction because they know better, but they really don't.
Yeah, I know my mom lives in Idaho. I moved her up there a couple of years ago with my aunt, and they live in a place that has really been attracting the expat Californians that are
Exactly.
fleeing in droves. And some of them are people who are wise enough to realize that the bullshit that goes on in California, that the rest of the country makes fun of California for, is the reason is the way that it is.
Exactly.
They have the self-awareness to actually, put two and two together on that. But there's a certain degree that come up there with their California bullshit, and she reads about it in the local newspaper. Some California drop an op-ed or a letter to the editor or whatever about how I saw a kid that couldn't be more than 16 years old with a hunting rifle in his pickup truck, and it's like, yeah, no shit, that's not a big deal, And
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
and it's, you would think that the economic situation has no tie to something as, that seems as disparate as, 16-year-olds with their hunting rifles in the back of their trucks. But it's that entire mindset that kind of comes part and parcel with itself, that a lot of these people can't be able to separate.
Right.
The,
Exactly.
it comes as a package deal. These sorts of it's like high taxes, high regulation, high social benefits, gun control, blah 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 blah. All these things kind of come together, and you can't separate them out into one or the other. And these people, it's like you said, it's all they know. It's
Exactly.
their entire life. This is how we've done things. They assume that the rest of the country works this way. Why try to change what's working? And they bring their BS to somewhere else.
Exactly. And I think a lot of it too, like even the ones that kind of think about stuff. I'm by necessity a long thinker. I sit in a car for like 8 hours a day. I'm going to think about shit. And by necessity, you kind of come to these long thoughts and eventually just draw conclusions on the final stage of whatever. But I think that even the most long thinking of them, they kind of pick and choose what they care about. So like if gun control necessarily doesn't affect them because they don't own guns personally, or like any number of things, if it doesn't affect them personally, they don't really care about it, so they're willing to make those trades to get the thing that they do care about. And you'll see a lot of these people that will just basically kind of make these weird concessions that normal people wouldn't make because they just don't give a shit. They see all these things and they're like, all right, well, I want abortion, so I don't give a shit about guns. I don't own a gun at home. The cops protect me. Or it's kind of the same on the right, but not to as an extreme degree. I see a lot of single issue gun voters that'll just kind of ignore like a whole bunch of shit. Like, oh well, this kid's not getting fed, but at least I got my guns. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's more severe on the left, I think, but like. I think these people in general, these kind of short-term thinkers, they will cherry pick what they care about, and they'll just kind of forego everything else.
Yeah. So you kind of led off that the guy that people that are watching this right now is a loose caricature based off of you and other Second Amendment supporters.
Right.
And you're obviously also from Illinois, which is reputationally one of the worst gun rights states in the country.
It is. Ironically, we only got a B+ on the gun control advocates group, which is funny to me. New York got an A, but we got a B+. So we're doing something right, I guess.
Yeah, that's pretty close to the top, but I'm
exactly.
surprised. But yeah, so. Obviously, you said you're a PI and everything, so there's probably going to be some exemptions in the crazy gun laws that go on for you.
Not as many as you think. We have kind of we get a little bit of dispensation from the police as far as like what we're allowed to do. The Midwest, especially out by me, is kind of like that mindset of this is the serial killer epicenter of the United States. Just hasn't really left the common, parlance of the people. So whenever they see like a random white guy with a beard outside of somebody's house, they're assuming he's going to murder somebody. That's just the way it is. So we get a little bit of leeway with the cops as far as like what we do. We can kind of set up shop in one single spot for 8 hours and be left alone. Theoretically, a lot of times the cops bother me, but for the most part, as far as gun laws are concerned, we're just regular civilians. We got the same bullshit rules as everybody else. If I have to gun somebody down on the street in self-defense, I'm just as fucked in court as everybody else. I don't have qualified immunity. So, my take on it is, for all intents and purposes, I'm just a civilian. I don't have any special protections. I don't have any special rights that I can kind of leverage to my benefit. And that's impacted, I think, my way of thinking a little bit. If I was a cop, I might be a little bit different minded, where I'm like, well, if I shoot somebody, I got qualified immunity, so it's not a big deal. Whereas, if I do it, it's kind of like, all right, well, this is now a situation. Now I got to like play the whole fucking rule thing with the lawyers, and I got to go to court, and I got to do this whole song and dance. And as a PI, you really need to keep abreast of the laws, because if you don't, you're gonna get fucked like any other civilian. So it is a little bit different. We got some leeway to do stuff, but for the most part, it's just kind of like, yeah, okay, you're tolerated sitting there, but nothing else.
No, I would have figured that it would have been. I know that, like, obviously police officers and some active duty military have exemptions in places right. with heavy gun control, is like, as far as things as possession of certain guns or high capacity magazine.
Right.
the magazine